Okay, here's just a little video showing you how to work some of these challenge problems that I've posted, either on a quiz or homework. And I've got a few examples written down here. Basically, inside the parentheses, we've got a number. It's either a positive or a negative. And then we've got these symbols here. We could, they're not really subtract. They're either negative or you could read them as the opposite of. So if you remember order of operations, you're always going to take care of what's in the parentheses first and then work your way out. And so when we work towards these bottom two, we're going to be working from the inside and then evaluating as we go further out. Okay, so let's start with the easier one. Here we have a 5, and we're going to take the opposite of a positive 5, and so that's going to give you a negative 5. Here we have, inside the parentheses, a negative 5, and on the outside we've got this symbol. We're going to say that's the opposite of a negative 5, and, so the opposite is going to be a positive. So the opposite of a negative is a positive. The opposite of a positive is a negative. So that's going to be positive 5. Now we get into the trickier ones. Again, we're going to start in the innermost area, okay, and then we're going to work our way out. So we start with a negative 5, and we want to take the opposite of a negative 5. So if we're looking at this part here, the opposite of a negative 5 is going to be a positive 5. But then we have this negative out here, or an opposite. So the opposite of a positive 5 would give us a negative 5. So again, we start with negative 5. We're going to take the opposite. That gives us a positive 5. We're going to take the opposite. That gives us a negative 5. And another one that's similar to that one, again, we want to start on the inside, or, on the innermost section. We start with a negative 5. The opposite of a negative 5 is a positive 5. The opposite of a positive 5 is a negative 5. The opposite of a negative is a positive. And I'm going to double check that because that's a lot of thinking here. So negative, positive, negative, positive. Yeah. Now, there were some absolute problems also that had similar setups to this on some of the problems. So let's just do an example like that. So we start off with a basic one. Let's do the absolute value of 5. Absolute value means distance from 0 to that number. And so it's always going to be a positive. So 5 is the distance, or the absolute value. Same with the absolute value of negative 5. That's the distance from 0 to negative 5. We're going to get a positive 5. But sometimes we have negative symbols on the outside, similar to what I just did up there. So if we have the opposite of the absolute value of negative 5, again, we want to start on the inside and work our way out. So the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. The opposite of 5 is negative 5. And again, we can do a trickier one. Okay, again, we want to start in the middle. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. The opposite of 5 is negative 5. The opposite of negative 5 is 5. Let's just double check. So absolute value of negative 5 is 5. Opposite of 5 is negative 5. Opposite of negative 5 is 5.